What's up, Tsla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down some big news that came out that's very important for Tesla, as Elon Musk just bought $1 billion worth of shares. And also what's happening moving forward to the overall market as we have big data coming out for tomorrow. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link that's down below or use my QR code right over here to sign up. If you sign up for Moomoo and deposit $100 with my link down below, you're going to get $20 of free Nvidia stock. If you deposit $2,000 or more, you're going to get $50 worth of Nvidia plus a $100 cash reward. Deposit $10,000 or more to get $300 worth of free Nvidia shares plus $100 in a cash reward, or deposit $50,000 to get $1,000 of free Nvidia stock plus $100. You're also going to qualify for an 8.1% APY on uninvested cash, and the offer ends very soon in just 2 weeks. So please use my links down below to sign up to get those free Nvidia shares. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the overall market. So as far as Tesla's going, as you guys can tell, we got this very, very nice pump in the morning. Elon Musk has bought $1 billion worth of Tesla shares, and this caused the share price to go up quite a bit. So this came out during an SEC filing report, which tells us that last Friday, he bought $1 billion worth of the stock, which solidifies his confidence in the company. He purchased over 2.5 million shares in the company. That is some great news. Now, this also makes investors more confident that Elon Musk is very confident in Tesla. He's committed to the company. He wants to stay here long term. He's not just going to buy this much into the company if he doesn't believe in it. And that is some fantastic news. Also, there was some news that came out about what happened in Germany. Tesla's preparing to increase their production in the German Gigafactory after we saw a strong increase in their sales momentum. According to Germany's DPA news agency, that is awesome news. So we ended up seeing a lot of news about that. That is great to see. And then Wedbush is also saying that Tesla will likely continue to outperform the market. The price-price ratio is going up as Tesla's building strength, and we're also seeing Tesla pushing as the market's hitting all-time highs. And once again, that is great to see. Tuesday tends to be green about 51.33% of the time for Tesla, and we tend to see more volatility at 11 o'clock a.m. and 1 p.m. So this is all good data for Tesla for now. But even though Tesla's pushing like this, there's going to be some data coming out that will affect whether or not this pump continues. Keep in mind, in just 2 days from now, we have the notorious FOMC meeting, with Jerome Powell giving a speech. There's a 96% chance the Fed's going to give us a 25 basis point cut, and about a 4.1% chance we get a 50 basis point cut. Now, we know the Fed is going to cut based off all these different factors, such as what's happening with our unemployment numbers and with the data that's coming out from the Department of Labor. There's weakness in the job sector, and the Fed has a dual mandate to maintain. So for now, there is once again some weakness, and that in turn is incentivizing the Fed to give us some kind of cut. But the question is, will the market get a massive rug pull after the cut comes, or does the market try to get some kind of bounce? That's going to greatly affect Tesla because Tesla is very sensitive to interest rates, which affects demand in the economy. It also affects Tesla's loans and such. So that's very, very important news. On the 4-hour time frame, in my morning video, I said that if Tesla cannot hold above 425, expect it to turn back down to about 410. And we ended up going a tiny bit lower to 402, and we're still showing some weakness. We did gap up very nicely, but we don't just gap up like 30, 40 points, then just continue to go usually, unless there's a very major piece of news. Instead, we gapped up, then we started to dip back down, and this does look like it might dip a little bit more. There is a gap now to fill all the way down to like 395. So I do see some downside risk on Tesla stock, once again, just temporarily. Now, despite that, there is data coming out for tomorrow that could actually affect this. If Tesla could reclaim like 425, we could try to bounce back up for 440. But if we can't hold above 410, I do expect us to retest the low of the day, which is right over here around this 402 area. If that fails us, there's also that gap to fill at 395, and we could return where we were last week. So that's very possible for Tesla as well. But it all depends on these pieces of news. Tomorrow is going to be Tuesday, September 16th, 2025. At 8:30 a.m., Eastern Standard Time, we have retail sales and export and import prices coming out. Then at 9:15 a.m., we have industrial production and manufacturing production numbers coming out, which will likely cause some volatility. So be ready for some volatility once all this data comes out. I think it's going to be very key for the way the market's going to be moving. Also, this data comes out 15 minutes before the market opens, so I do expect some volatility during this time. So that's going to be very key for how we end up moving. So be ready for this. Manufacturing makes up a large sector in our economy, so I do expect some volatility once this comes out. And then when it comes to other pieces of news, the market was continuing to push as we're nearing a Fed cut. That is some good news. President Trump also said some things that greatly benefited the stock market. He's saying that too late, Powell must cut interest rates now and bigger than he had in mind. Housing will soar, and he is correct. Jerome Powell will cut rates, but we don't know the exact extent quite yet. President Trump also said that there was a big trade meeting in Europe between the US and China, and it went very well. He also claims that a deal was reached on a certain company that young people in our country very much wanted to save. And then he said, subject to SEC approval, companies and corporations should no longer be forced to report on a quarterly basis. Instead, he's talking about a potential 6-month basis, a semi-annual basis, excuse me, instead. So that's what President Trump has been talking about. And the market was kind of pushing with all this news coming out. My only warning about President Trump, though, is what he said very, very recently. He said that there's going to be import tariffs coming out on chips. They're going to be coming very, very shortly. They're going to be very substantial. And he did talk about potentially seeing 100 to 200% tariffs on semiconductors. He even talked about that yesterday about how when foreign companies who are building extremely complex products, machines, and various other things come into the US with massive investments, he wants them to bring their people of expertise for a period of time to teach and train our people to do the same things. He's referring to chips, semiconductors, computers, and many different products. And then he also said that he does not want to frighten off or de-incentivize investments, but he is saying that he welcomes it and he wants employees to teach Americans how to build things. And then he said that he wants us to basically build the same products and maybe even do a better job at their own game. So he also mentioned it could happen into the not too distant future. And he's telling us that, once again, his way of incentivizing production in America is he wants to see chips and semiconductors built in America. To do that, he is threatening new tariffs on semiconductors. And that's some very, very important news from President Trump. So keep that in mind. Greed makes up the majority of sentiment, and momentum is at greed right now. We also have the put to call option ratio at extreme greed and volatility is at neutral. So that's what we're seeing, at least so far, in terms of the overall market. Greed is still quite present. There are things about to shift. Finally, when it comes to more news, we had Dave & Buster's announced their earnings after market close. Tuesday is actually kind of like minor, and there's not really much going on. Then we just have FedEx and some minor earnings, so that's pretty much it for now. So what does this mean for the future? What do I think the stock market is going to do? Let's now talk about my price predictions. Like I said before, if you want to be bullish on Tesla, you need to break and hold above 425 to really break out for 440. If you want to be bearish on Tesla, you want to see us basically fail at 410. If it does not hold, we could be looking for a dip to 400. And if that fails us, there is this gap to fill back down to 395. So I think there's a very, very good chance of us potentially seeing some downside. As you can tell, we're making like lower highs here, and this may continue to fall back down towards the low 400s to fill this gap. So for the time being, there is going to be a risk of us kind of like turning back down to fill this gap all the way down to like 395. I think the odds favor some downside. Could we consolidate? Yes, but I think the odds favor the low 400s for tomorrow. We'll see if we bounce or not. If we don't, there's going to be a risk of us filling this gap back down to 395. So keep that in mind for Tesla. The downside risk is still there for a temporary move down. Now, even if Tesla just dips a little bit, this does not necessarily mean Tesla's going to crash. We could dip a little bit, retest the low 400s, then bounce back up and kind of consolidate heading into FOMC. Then Jerome Powell is going to either give us a big pump or a big rug pull. I think this is how Tesla's going to move. It's going to see a small dip to like 395 to 400, then bounce. Then Jerome Powell either launches this right back up or back down. On the daily time frame, we're holding up nicely, but keep in mind we kind of like pushed and came back down, which could signify this gap over here could get filled soon. So it's still kind of risky. So I do anticipate some sideways price action. May dip a bit to the low 400s or 395, and then we'll see if we bounce off that. So be very, very patient, at least nonetheless. When it comes to SPY, okay, I'm also seeing some weakness on SPY, but it's not terrible. SPY also now has a new bearish divergence and a bearish rising wedge that's developing, which does give us, an increased probability of there being some downside soon, but it's not 100% guaranteed. We do have some data coming out for tomorrow at 9:15 a.m. before the market opens. So it's possible that if you want to be a bull, you want to break 661. If you do, there's a lot of tough resistance in the 662s between 662 and 662.8 in this resistance. If you're bearish, you want to see us lose 658. If that fails us, we're looking for a dip back down. I think that we might retest 658 tomorrow, just like this, bounce back up and just kind of trade sideways like that. And then we're going to see what happens after FOMC. Does Jerome Powell give us a big pump one more time before we get some kind of like rug pull? Or do we just dump from here and we just start dumping all the way down to like the 640s again after FOMC? Either one of these are very possible. There is a risk of this because of the rising wedge. So there's an increased probability of us getting some kind of rug pull very soon. So we'll see which way we end up breaking. But for tomorrow, I don't think that we're ready to see a massive break up or down. I think that we're going to retest 558, bounce back up to 560, and consolidate for some time before we end up seeing a bigger move. So just keep that in mind. On the QQQ, we have resistance at 592 and support down here at 588. I would not be surprised if we come all the way down to 588, bounce back up and just kind of consolidate. Then we'll see if we break out to 594 plus or if we get a big rug pull all the way down below 585. So it could be going either way. But tomorrow, I do think we dip a little bit to like 588 to 590. Then we bounce, just trade sideways. Then Jerome Powell gives us the big pump and dump, or we just kind of like dump from here. It all depends. Keep in mind there's a rising wedge on the QQQ and a triple bearish divergence, which typically signify there's going to be some downside risk. But we'll see just to be safe. I can't make promises. By the way, if the Fed gives us a 25 basis point cut, I do think the odds favored by the rumors sold the news, meaning that we kind of push approaching FOMC and then get a rug pull. But if Jerome Powell and the Fed basically give us a 50 basis point cut and they completely shock everyone, then the market could rally. And you want to be prepared just to be safe, which is why you always want to manage risks no matter what. Always manage risks, guys. Never go all in one position. When it comes to the IWM, if you break 240, we're looking for 242. If you lose 238, we're looking for 236. I think we test 238 flat tomorrow, then we kind of bounce and consolidate like this before we see a bigger move. However, when you zoom out, okay, when you really zoom out, you'll see that we have an inverse head and shoulders here, and the top is likely between 240 and 245 before it ends up turning. That's the most likely possibility, which tells us that we're near some kind of top on the IWM, whether we get a bounce or not. So we're just going to take it one day at a time. I still think that we might be dipping towards 238, maybe a little bit lower. We bounce to 240 and trade sideways, and we'll see if we break up or down depending on these different circumstances. ES is dipping right here. If we break 66.80, we're looking for 6,700 as our target. But if we end up losing 66.60, we're going to be turning back down to 66.40. I think 66.40 is going to be tested tomorrow, a bounce, some consolidation like this. Then FOMC is going to come and either launch us back up to new all-time highs or give us a big rug pull. Even if we do launch a bit higher, I still think we could get the rug pull afterwards. But either way, there is that downside risk on ES with the divergences. On NQ, we pushed quite a bit thanks to Tesla and also because of Nvidia trying to bounce, but the move did not last. If we break 24,600 bullish, if we lose 24,300, we're going to be turning back down. I anticipate we kind of dip a little bit to 24,440. We bounce to kind of trade sideways like this. Then we'll see which way we end up breaking, if it's up or down. So be very, very careful as time goes on. So you want to be very mindful of this just to see if we get some kind of dip back down. I anticipate some consolidations, and we'll see what happens from there. Bitcoin's also trading sideways right here. We're stuck in the middle. We have resistance around 115,800 and support down here at 114,000. We're making lower highs here, so it could pop to 115,000, dip to 114,000, kind of trade sideways. And we'll see if we bounce or not. Otherwise, there could be some downside risk. For Tesla, like I said before, we're on a bit of a downtrend right here. And there's going to be a risk of us consolidating, then dipping back down to the low 400s. And we'll see if we bounce or not, but the downside risk is there. For Nvidia, we have resistance at 178 and support at 175. I am anticipating that 175 is going to be tested, and we'll see if we bounce or not. If not, we could be dipping a little bit, so be very careful. Also, keep in mind for semiconductors that if President Trump announces the new tariffs on them, that could once again affect things, so you want to be very, very careful nonetheless. Aapl, Has a possible head and shoulders. This is not guaranteed to pan out though. Left shoulder, head and right shoulder could be forming. If we get back above 240 though, we could try to invalidate it and remain bullish. If we can't get back above 240, we're going to be looking for a big rug pull of 225 breaks for bearish. I think tomorrow though, we test 232, then bounce and still trade sideways for now. We're just going to do something like this tomorrow, and then we'll see if we get a bigger rug pull later or not. But look for 232, and then we'll see if we bounce. On Netflix, we're in the middle right here. We could be looking for an attempt to push to 12.13, and we'll see if we reject. Look for some upside for 12.13 to 12.20, then we'll see if we turn back down. That's going to be very key for how we end up moving. On MSTR, we have resistance at 334 and support down here at 320. I think we could be looking for 330 to 334, then we'll turn back down and continue to trade sideways. On Celsius, we're making lower highs here. If we can't hold above 58, we're going to likely continue to fall back down to 55, so you want to be very careful. Supermicro is also forming an inverse head and shoulders. If we end up losing 43.5, we're going to be dumping back down, but as long as this holds, we could be looking for 47. For Palantir, we have a nice double bottom here. If we end up losing basically 166, we're going to be turning back down lower. As long as this holds, we're going to be favoring a move back up towards this 173.5. I think it goes a little bit higher, at least for the time being. Then we'll see if it rejects from there. Rivian could be retesting 13.76 to 14. I think it goes a little bit higher before it potentially rejects. SoFi is looking bullish, favoring 28 plus. Might be looking for 28 to 28.5, and we'll see how it goes. AMD has an inverse head and shoulders unless we end up losing 157.75. As long as we hold 160, we could be looking for a bounce and a push for 164. ARM is looking more bullish. As long as we don't lose 150, we're going to be favoring consolidation and an attempt for 158. PayPal has a nice looking inverse head and shoulders. We could be looking for 68, and we'll see if you reject. Coinbase is looking more bullish. As long as we don't end up losing 318, we're going to be favoring an attempt for 330 or above. For Amazon, we're kind of stuck in the middle right here. There is a gap below, so we need to get back above 234 to really push to these highs again. If we can't do that, this might kind of push here just a little bit, just like this, and then turn back down towards 227. Meta's not looking that great. We have kind of like a double top here. Unless we get back above like 768, this is favoring a push and a dip back down to like 753. Google's looking more bullish, favoring 255, and we'll see if it rejects. Microsoft is also going to be favoring 516. If that breaks, we're looking for 518 as our resistance. For DJT, we're looking a bit more bullish, nice inverse head and shoulders like structure. As long as we don't end up losing 17.1, we're going to be favoring 17.5 as our resistance for a little bit more upside. We're going to see, is the VIX forming a falling wedge? Is it about to get a breakout out of this? We're starting to break out. Are we about to break out of this? If we do, it could mean the market's about to get a rug pull. We'll see just to be safe, though. I think the 10-year dips a bit thanks to the Fed. It might be dipping below 4 before we see a bounce. The dollar is also dipping as well. And then crude is kind of flat, so there's not really much going on. So the market is going to likely see a small dip tomorrow by like 2 points on SPY and the QQQ before we try to bounce. Then I expect some continuation in the consolidation phase. And then we're going to see what happens after FOMC. Will Jerome Powell and the Fed give us a rug pull or not? Will Tesla continue to rally, or does it get a rug pull after FOMC? I think approaching it, we might see a little bit more downside on Tesla might pop and then start dipping back down to like 402, maybe even the gap fill for 395. Then we could bounce again off that level and just continue to be range bound. Look for some downside on Tesla for a small bounce, but the real move comes after FOMC most likely, so be ready. I do expect a big move, and I think that Jerome Powell is going to cause a lot of volatility, so be ready. With that being said, I thank you all so much for listening. Please have an awesome rest of your guys' days for now, and I'll see you guys very soon tomorrow. I'll be back before market open. Until then, I wish you all nothing but the best, and I thank you all so much for watching these videos. Don't forget to leave a like if you really want to see more videos like this, and I'll be back very, very soon tomorrow. Thank you for listening, guys. Get ready. We have one more full trading day until FOMC, and the big guy, Jerome Powell, is going to cause a lot of volatility. So do what you have to do, guys. Be ready, and I thank you all so much for listening. I'll see you guys very soon, and peace out.